Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday meditation, which is a little late this week because I needed a few more days to just kind of think about this psalm and what I wanted to say about it, and also because it was a little bit of a shortened week with Monday being a holiday, and I just kind of got a late start to my week. So join me today in Psalm 68. It's verses 1 through 10 and 32 through 35. Let's start with Psalm 68. Let God rise up, let his enemies be scattered. Let those who hate him flee before him. As smoke is driven away, so drive them away. As wax melts before the fire, let the wicked perish before God. Let the righteous be joyful, let them exult before God. Let them be jubilant with joy. Sing to God, sing praises to his name. Lift up a song to him who rides upon the clouds. His name is the Lord, be exultant before him. Father of orphans and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation. God gives the desolate a home to live in. He leads out the prisoners to prosperity, but the rebellious live in a parched land. O God, when you went out before your people, when you marched through the wilderness, the earth quaked, the heavens poured down rain. At the presence of God, the God of Sinai, at the presence of God, the God of Israel. Rain in abundance, O God, you showered abroad. You restored your heritage when it languished. Your flock found a dwelling in it. In your goodness, O God, you provided for the needy. Sing to God, O kingdoms of the earth. Sing praises to the Lord. O rider in the heavens, the ancient heavens. Listen, he sends out his voice, his mighty voice. Ascribe power to God, whose majesty is over Israel, whose power is in the skies. Awesome is God in his sanctuary, the God of Israel. He gives power and strength to his people. Blessed be God. In reading this psalm, you really get to see and feel God's power. It says God scatters enemies, the wicked perish before God, the righteous are joyful. God is a parent to the orphans and protector of widows. The desolate are given a home and a family. Prisoners are led to prosperity. God's power shakes the earth and pours down rain as God is portrayed as the rider in the heavens, and God sends out a mighty voice, mighty, mighty voice. God's power is said to be in the skies, in the clouds. And it was evident in the storm. As my two children and I were driving across Kansas recently, we saw God's power in a storm, a crazy, crazy thunderstorm. I don't think I've ever seen a thunderstorm so intense. And as we were driving into it, I thought, well, this is crazy. And the ground was shaking. I could feel it even in the car. I could feel God's power in that storm. We could see it, we could feel it, we could hear it, and it terrified us. When I think about God's power, though, it doesn't only have to be so mighty that in that storm I could see destruction. I was fearful for destruction. It terrified me because I was afraid of what would happen. And it wasn't good things. But God's power is not just powerful in a destructive kind of way. God's power, it doesn't have to be unleashed in a terrifying way. In this psalm, I think that David, the writer, understood that God is great and powerful. And he also understood that there is variety to God's power and to what God can do as the creator. Think about creation. God created everything that you see, and think about like the birds. Just take them, for instance. There are so many different birds, and the variety between them is immense. And then you think about how many different species of animals and insects that there are. The great variety in God's power of creation. It's you can't even think about how many there are. There's an infinite amount of variety of different things. And then if you think about, as I meditated more on this psalm and thinking about God's variety in power, I was thinking about the New Testament and how God chose to heal blind people in the New Testament. We had looked at it in one of my classes this year. There's variety. There's different ways. In one instance, Jesus just spoke a simple word and the person was healed. In another, he gently touched the person to heal them. In another instance, he rubbed the spit with clay. He mixed spit with clay and rubbed it on their eyes, and the person was healed. And then in another, he spit directly, not spit into their eyes, but he used spit directly on their eyes to heal them. So the methods were all different, but the result of complete healing was the same. God's power is always the same, whether it's healing or a storm. It's God's power doesn't change, even though the delivery changes. And in thinking about that, I thought about how sometimes we as a people, we get locked into a way of doing things, and we expect sometimes God to work in certain ways and within our lives. And I think that we need to take into account the variety of God's power and not put God into a box, and not put his creative power into a box of our own expectations, possibly. God doesn't work within our boundaries, and God certainly does not check with us before working in our lives. And God does not check with us before unleashing power into the world. So David begun this psalm. It says, "Let God rise up." And in thinking about those words, "let God rise up," it's almost like petitioning God, or not challenging God, but petitioning God to rise up, to unleash God's power in a creative way, possibly, in a way that we've never seen before. So I think this week I challenge you to petition God to rise up in your life in an unexpected way, in a creative way, in a way that you would never have thought. Ask God to rise up in our country, in our world, in unexpected ways. We need to petition God, the great creator who created with variety, who heals with variety, to move and change and heal us, our world, our country, in great creative ways. We need God to rise up in powerful, creative ways that we can't even imagine. We need God's blessings to rain down on us in such a way that it will be an immense, powerful thunderstorm of blessings, so that we can heal, so that we can be healed with God's creative power. So I pray for everybody this week that God's creative powers will rise up in each and every one of you. And I pray that you dare to ask God to rise up in your life, in your world, and in our country. Have a great week, everybody.